Hi, my name is Silly and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about a book. We're talking about a book that I was so excited to read and ended up being a major disappointment, like possibly one of the worst books I have read this year. So without further ado, that book is Son of Blood and Ruin by Marilee Laris. So this book, I ended up rating this, I think, 2 stars, which was me being generous and me trying to consider holistically the world and the positives that were in this book. I will start off with the non-spoiler review and then get into all of the spoilers because there is a lot I need to rant about in this book. So first off, non-spoilers, as I said, it's 2 out of 5 stars, maybe like a 3 out of 10 if we're thinking up. This story takes place in, I think it's around maybe like the 1600s. It takes place after Hernan Cortez went to Mexico and Central Latin America, and the Spaniards basically took over that whole section of the continent, wiped out a lot of the culture, of the language, and tried to kind of like homogenize an entire society into the new Spanish Empire. In this story, it is post-Aztec Empire and is kind of like during the colonization of that region. So in it, there are ancient Aztec gods. There are people who are referred to as sorcerers who can transform into certain kinds of animals if they really hone that craft and if they kind of practice like their spirituality with the earth, basically. And overall, the premise is fascinating. I loved overall the premise and how mythology was brought into the story. But then, you know, the book started and the entire plot of this book just kind of made me mad because it felt as if there were just all of these random plot pieces that were just kind of thrown together into a bucket, and the storytelling was kind of like, and then this happened, and then this, and then this, and then this happened, and then all of a sudden this person shows up and this happened. And it felt so jumbled and piecemeal. It felt like all of the characters were bland and boring and had no personality. The main character had so much potential, but her backstory was really, it just felt like random and weird how it was told. And every single character, when a new character was introduced, they were basically introduced through a conversation where one person gives an entire page-long summary of who this new character is and tried to like read you into the story instead of just allowing you to be immersed in the world. And it just felt like everything was over-explained but then didn't actually connect, which was so annoying. And then there was a random romance thrown in there that I feel like was not at all like built up. There was at some point like a love triangle that lasted for like 5 pages, which was weird and didn't make any sense. And it felt like the pacing of this whole novel was also all over the place because for at least the first third, I wasn't really sure what storyline we were building up to, and then all of a sudden it was just happening. And then at that point I was like, okay, what kind of climax are we building to? And then there was only like 50 pages left and the climax still hadn't happened. I was like, okay, there's not a lot of book left here. Like something has to happen at some point so we can actually have a resolution, right? And then the way it ended, it just, I just felt so disappointed. So those are my non-spoiler thoughts. If you are planning to read this book, I don't want to dissuade you because you might have an entirely different reading of this book than I did and you might enjoy it. So please let me know if you end up reading it after seeing the non-spoiler part of my review. I'm very curious to hear other people's opinions. And this was a book club pick for my Mythologists Book Club, where we read mythologies and myth retellings from all around the world. We will continue to do so, so please check out the Mythologists Book Club. I will link it down below if you want to read mythologies from all around the world with us. So without further ado, let's talk spoilers, because this book makes me enraged. Okay, so it starts off, and the main character, La Pantera, she basically, she just like shows up. She's the vigilante, right? She shows up and she's supposed to be like this really cool, badass fighter warrior woman. But I feel like any of the fighting scenes, we don't actually see any of the action taking place. Like, it either feels so rushed and then she like does some kind of move and then it's over. And then every single character that was introduced, like I can't even remember any of the characters' names because I feel like they didn't get the time of day for us to actually know who they were. And anytime they were introduced, it was that block text of just, this is their entire backstory told by some person in the room, where you're like, this wouldn't be happening. There wouldn't be someone taking like the time to say an entire monologue about this person's entire background, right? And then the romance that she had with what's-his-face. At this point, like, I was also so confused because there was the other masked guy that was like also a vigilante, but then she also almost had something going with the guy who was the prince but then was only masquerading as the prince, which, can I just say, back in the day you could really get away with anything. Like, I know this is a fictional story, and I know this is a very non-realistic fictional story just based off of how the characters act. Like, not even the plot. Like, the plot totally could happen, but the way that the characters act is not realistic. So back in the day you could really get away with anything. This man just shows up and he's like, I'm the Prince of Spain, and everyone's like, yes you are. You are the Prince of Spain. No ID check, no letter written home, nothing. Where's the prince? I don't even know. I lost track of that. Do we know, is he alive? No one knows, and no one cares in this story. So if he, at some point he's just Martin, sure. Okay, and she's just fine with that. Later he just reveals himself to like the entire court. No one's surprised. No one cares. I'm like, I feel like someone should care that this man has been pretending to be the prince this entire time, but like clearly no one does. So I'm like, okay. Also, the villain. The villain in this story, Navarez, oh my god. This man was like barely a villain. I'm sorry, this man failed in villainry school because he just sucks. He sucks at what he does. He's not a good villain. He doesn't do anything. And then at some point, this is when I was really losing it, towards the end when we finally get to the climax where there's like 40 pages left and I'm like, are we gonna have a fight? Like, something has to happen in this story, right? We're building this something, right? So then he shows up, and then like at some point someone's like, oh yeah, Navarez has shown up with hundreds of thousands of soldiers to fight. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this entire story took place in over like 3 days from what I understood of it. Was it longer? No one knows because the pacing, disastrous. So he shows up with hundreds of thousands of soldiers within like a day's notice. Please. They climb up this random mountain, which like took like, apparently took them days to do, but like the way this was written, it took them a mere couple hours to climb this mountain. So I guess he just manages in the 1600s to get a hold of like hundreds of thousands of people for this like invasion to, I don't know, like vanquish the forces that have risen against him. Like, in what world would he accomplish that in a day? Like, there's just no way. And then this final battle sequence, she defeats him in like a mere instance. There's not even like an epic battle. We don't even see really what's going on. Some other guy just like shows up at the, to be fair, I did skim this because at this point I was losing it. I'm just so upset because there There was so much potential. This story sounded so cool. Okay, on to more complaints. So the woman who was like, see, here's my problem. I can't remember names even on a good day. Amalia, I think it's Amalia, Lady Amalia, fakes a pregnancy with, was it the future prince? Was it the guy who was faking being a prince? Yeah, right? Yeah. Martin? Yeah. She fakes a pregnancy with this man. She like gets with the man, then fakes a pregnancy. And she's like La Pantera's like main nemesis for most of this story. Then at some point, when there's only like 80 pages left, she was like, hey, I would actually love to come up the mountain with you. La Pantera's like, why would you do that? You have no skills. And she's like, actually, I do. I do have a lot of skills, and I have a lot I can bring to the table of this like insurgency. And so La Pantera's like, why not? Sure. And then all of a sudden they're best friends and they're climbing up this mountain, and Lady Amalia has like brought absolutely nothing. She's brought like a change of clothes, and La Pantera's like, I can't believe you brought such useless items with you. Flash forward like 20 pages when La Pantera and what's his face were going up a different mountain to go to like kind of that magical spiritual place where she was trained and where her master is and where she's trying to find answers. They're going up a different mountain, and she hasn't packed any food, she hasn't packed any medicine, she hasn't packed anything like a knife, nothing. She has nothing with her. Sure, why not? But then in the middle of the night, she pulls out her quill, her inkwell, and her journal, and she starts journaling. Woman, you were eating cockroaches earlier today, and you didn't think to bring, I don't know, like a loaf of bread, an apple, maybe a knife to help you hunt, some medicine, some bandages. No, you brought an inkwell so you could journal about your experience. Are you kidding me? That's when I lost it. And then the twist of this story, am I remembering this right? Because I feel like this entire chapter was a fever dream where she's up there and she's like reconnecting with her master, and then he's like, I was your father all along, or like your mother was a goddess. I'm missing something there. Something about her parents' lineage or something was revealed, and I was so shocked and confused that I blacked out, and now I can't remember even what happened. So in sum, this book was a lot. This book was a lot. I had so many high hopes for this. It's a series, which also confuses me because I don't know what else could happen in the next book. Yeah, suffice it to say, the cover is beautiful. Sprayed edges are beautiful. This is the Fairy Loot exclusive edition. The premise sounded so amazing. This doesn't mean I'm not going to try some of the author's other works in the future. I think this was a debut, which I could tell. I'm not going to be continuing the series, but if she writes something else, I think she has really interesting ideas. I just think the writing and the editing were not here on this, and I think that's something that can definitely be improved upon, and that's something that she can work on with her editor or publisher, because there's just so many people that work on a book and sometimes things go wrong. And also, like I said, just because I really didn't like this book does not mean that anyone else won't like this book. Maybe you read it and you absolutely loved it, which if that's the case, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. I just didn't. So yeah, that's it for my review. As I mentioned, if you want to join me in discussing, ranting, and raving about books based off of mythologies, mythological retellings from all around the world, you can join the Mythologists Book Club on Fable, linked down below. Let me know your thoughts on this book. I would love to discuss it more in the comments down below. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye!